Well, we got a final, folks. Auburn falls to Kentucky at home during the outlive game, a battle of the Blue Bloods. The score 70-59 in favor of the Kentucky Wildcats. We're going to talk about the stats, the storylines, and of course the score. All that's coming up here right now. So let's get this thing started. War Eagle Auburn family and War Eagle E2C Network family, thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the different places, times, places, multiverses with which you can get this content, we appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. As always, we'd love to start the show off by encouraging you to smash the like button, not for the performance, but for our sakes. That'd be a huge help. And of course, let us know that you're here, especially if you're live, by posting where you're watching from. With a War Eagle. It is always good to say War Eagle, even during times like this. Obviously, we are here for a reaction show to break down exactly what we just all witnessed, which was not a great time for anyone in the orange and blue. A big-time matchup, a big-time level of hype built around this game that did not really result in the hype that was built up around it. Obviously, there's a lot of feelings that want to be shared, and I'm sure we're going to get into all of that tonight. We're going to try to look at things as constructively as we can, and also talk about some of the different things that happened during this game that are probably a little bit frustrating, sad, and all the above. For you Kentucky fans that will show up, that didn't plan to show up if you lost, but now are coming in, especially on the replay, to post their little things and run off. Have you fun? But we know you wouldn't be here if it was the other way around. But let's get into it, folks. I was not at the game. I was on campus. I am still on campus. I have not gone just yet, but I chose to not go in today and take the game in from afar, which it seemed like it was probably the right decision to do so. Probably one of the bigger storylines, even outside the loss, what it means for Auburn implications, is what's going on with Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams with an injury, and boy, do you hate to see that one. Not just from a personnel standpoint, from a person standpoint. I have not heard an update on him. Maybe some of you all have. The only update we got on the broadcast was that it was a knee injury and he would not be back during the game. It's a huge loss in the game. What happens going forward, only time will tell. But it affects me greatly to watch a guy like Jalen Williams who's put his heart and soul into this, not just this team, but this program, get hurt the way he did, but also maybe hurt further. We shall see what comes of that. Auburn did not play well today. And ironically, as bad as they played at times, they still were in position to take this game back over at several points, just could not close the door. And it is frustrating to see that we're having this happen at home for the very first time this season, breaking win streaks at home, and obviously ruining the hype around Pearlville/Jungle Village and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of that's where we're at, right? That's kind of how it feels at this moment. Let's talk about it. What do you guys say? I see a few people already checking in. Thanks for being here. Unbeaten Lake says this is worse than the Florida game, and this was at home. I don't know. That's a little bit hyperbolic to me, Unbeaten Lake. We did not seem like we even wanted to be at the Florida game, so I disagree with you there. We wanted to be in this game. You got to give you got to give a lot of credit to Kentucky for coming out and performing the way they did on the road in this environment. But you also have to acknowledge that Auburn had a lot of easy shots just rim in and rim out. And sometimes it's just the way the ball bounces. So I disagree with you that this was the worst possible loss thus far this season. You lost to one of the best teams in the SEC. Granted, it's at home. It's a little bit frustrated. Embarrassing loss, in my opinion. Not sure about the Elite Eight prediction, Kyle. I was just thinking about that, Devin, that I felt like I waited so long to make that statement, to be very cautious about how I went about it. And ever since I said that, We've seen more struggles than not. So you may blame me if you like to. And right now, the consistency is the biggest thing. And I would say that is not the consistency of an Elite Eight team. So I would definitely start retracting that statement, but I'm not going to act like we've just fallen off the rails here just yet. NBA players versus a few possible G League guys, Mike said. I don't know. Again, a lot of hyperbole there. Not really a true statement all that much, but I understand that feelings are hurt right now. So, yeah, definitely the thing that we're all focused on at the moment is what's going on with Jalen and what does this mean? It does feel like every time Auburn gets some good news on the national stage today, they were picked by the selection committee as one of the top 16 teams out there, being a 4 seed. This comes off after a routing of South Carolina at home. It seems like every time lately Auburn has something really good happen for them, they fall flat on their face. And that's a frustrating trend to see that happen. If Jalen is hurt, we are toast. I'm going to hope that we're not. I hope we can make some adjustments here. We've got a very deep bench, and I think we could potentially have some people slide into a spot. Now, you cannot replicate what happened with Jay Will and what he has put together in terms of this season thus far. Only time will tell. Lots of ups and downs over the last week. That is probably the most true and calm response I thought we could have gotten tonight about that, about the last couple of weeks. Lots of up and downs over the last week. Just kind of right there. It's so true. Brian says, had decent looks, but shots weren't falling. Hoping Jay Will is okay. I agree, sir. I agree. Chris on Facebook, shot 31% from the field and 19% from 3. You are going to lose. Definitely are. We'll go take a look at some of those stats here in just a little bit. On Twitter, X, whatever. Hope this wakes up Denver and a few others to take it up a notch. We still could have won without Jalen Williams. I agree that we could have won without Jalen Williams. And that's why, I forget who said it earlier, but that we're toast without Jalen Williams. I would say that we're talking more in the motion of the moment right now before we see this team rise to the occasion if Jalen is out for an extended period of time. We don't know. Now, when you injure your knee, you typically have to sit out a little bit because knee injuries can be very bad, and you want to be careful with those, especially if you're planning on having a future career, which I would assume Jalen is going to want to have somewhere. So I would start preparing yourself that Jalen Williams will miss some time. We shall see. Chris says that we fly when we're flying under the radar, we're usually better. It does feel that way sometimes. I agree with you there from time to time, but it's nice to be at the top too. I just wish we could stay there longer. Oh, what a couple of weeks it has been. What a couple of weeks. All right, look, I know y'all don't want to spend a ton of time talking about this, and the oh-so-brave Kentucky fans that are going to invade this stream on the replay are just waiting for it to be done so they don't have to show their faces here. So we need to get to the point of what we want to talk about tonight. I do want us to discuss some stats. We'll look at some individual things. I know on nights like this, you don't want to ask for a player of the game. If you have one, you're more than welcome to share it. Jalen Williams only ends the night with 3 points in 24 minutes of play. I'm shocked he had that many minutes of play with the injury even. Janai Broome is your tied for leading scorer tonight with 14 points. Chad Baker-Mazzara stepped up a lot of ways tonight. I think he obviously has shown that before, that he can be a guy that can be called upon a little bit more, especially in moments where one of our other stars goes down, Jalen. And definitely made an effort tonight, but there wasn't enough of support around Janai, around Chad to really make a difference. For some reason, we have a lot of terrible luck at the end of the season. Anthony in 2018, Shuma in 2019, Sharif in 2021. Was he hurt at 2021? I thought that was the beginning of the year that we didn't have him. And Jalen in the tournament 2022. Now Jalen in 2024. Well, I'm not going to say that doesn't seem to be a little trend, but hopefully this is something that'll work itself out and we won't be seeing an actual trend continue. 5 games left on the road. Not sure we can beat Tennessee. At Tennessee playing this way, no. But that's, of course, that's what they said about Kentucky coming in here. But I think we can beat Georgia and Missouri. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. We're going to still focus on the game at hand right now. I know y'all are wanting to move on, but we need to focus on this for a little bit. Kentucky was desperate for a win. They've really underperformed. I agree with that. And I think there is a little bit of degree of not necessarily effort, but that how bad do you want it? Kentucky was not reeling, but getting to the point where they really needed to make a statement about what type of Kentucky team they were going to be. And they saw the opportunity here. What better way to give Auburn some shut-up juice than at home when they're making a big deal about this? And they haven't had a lot of success here. They showed the stat on the screen that 5 of the last 6 times or something like that they've been here, they lost. And that speaks to how powerful the jungle is. But no matter how powerful the jungle is, you got to play to match the energy of the jungle. Yeah, I forgot about Sharif's injury too. I didn't know. Maybe I blocked that out of my memory. All right, other individual stats tonight. We got Chris Moore with 1 point tonight. Trey Donaldson with only 1 point. Trey, when he had a lot of foul trouble tonight, 4 for him. And he got a lot of those early on. Denver Jones with 12 points tonight. He stepped up in some ways. When he was called upon as a point guard, it was very hit or miss, especially at the end of the game with a couple of turnovers. Aiden Holloway with 4 tonight. Berman and Chaney Johnson with 0. And Dylan Cardwell with 4. So, it's the normal cast of characters scored points, just a lack thereof. Really, if you had Jalen Williams tonight, that's the difference. If Jalen Williams is playing, this might be a different story. And I hate to say that because I don't want to put it on one situation or one player, but it's hard to make that case. What were we lacking tonight? A production from Jalen Williams. And some of that was, earlier on before he got hurt. But obviously he can't control whether or not he gets hurt tonight. All right, so that's some individual stats. You guys keep your comments and questions coming. We'll address them as appropriate here. Team stats tonight, you guys have already brought up a few of those. 31% from the field, not great. 1 out of every 3 shots. 17 for 55. It looks even worse when you say it like that. 18% from the three-point arc. 4 for 22. Definitely, I think it was Chris who said it earlier, definitely not going to cut it. The big 3 that we focus on here that really play significant roles in who wins the game: free throws, turnovers, and rebounds. Let's look at those. Free throws tonight, 70% for Auburn. Not great. Okay, but not good, especially when a lot of other struggles are happening. You really need to make sure you make the free shots. Turnovers tonight, it got bad at the end. Auburn actually had a little bit of a gap between them and Kentucky, but that's basically negligible at that point, so not really an advantage for Auburn there anyway. So that's essentially 2 they've lost because you're playing at home. And then rebounds, they lost. Auburn gained some ground at the end there, 39-36, but they still lose that. So essentially, almost, Auburn basically loses or ties all those main categories that I focus on so much, which is, I don't care if you're at home, I don't care if you're on the road. That ain't good. John says, looked like a road game. Well, which road games are you talking about? Are you talking about the ones where we have looked good, which I know they feel few and far between, but they are there. We've had a handful of good road games. Does it seem to you that when our regular season doesn't work, our regular offense season, why did I read season into that? We just start looking completely lost. I don't know that it's lost. I think there's a little bit of desperation that sets in when you're, as a team, you've got to learn to work through some of when things aren't going your way. And I think for the first time this season, Auburn had to really work hard to make things work for them at home. Crowd was great. The energy was there. Y'all saw the ticket prices. Like, all the ingredients were there, but the shots just weren't falling. And they took a few bad shots. Jay Billis even talked about this, but the great shots that they were taking, they're just rimming out. Sometimes there's just a little bit of bad luck on your side, coupled with a team playing above where they've been at. It's a little concerning that it's on the road for them and not our place. But to me, it's less about a team looking lost, more so about reckoning with, oh crap, we can't make this work as easily as we normally do at home. It's just kind of, it's the first time they've ever had to work through that. And they almost worked through it at times. Feeling like everything was forced. I kind of agree with that. I think being lost, I wouldn't agree with that, but forcing things. You're trying to force something to work that really wasn't there at times. Maybe a little bit of panic's a strong word, but you could obviously put that in there too. I like the way you're going with describing that unbeaten leg. Devin says her father's opinion, if Jalen isn't scoring at least 15 points, then we won't win any games. In all 6 losses, Jalen had 10 or less points. And so there might be a little bit something to that. As Jalen has gone, so has the team, right? It seems to be statistically there. But I think what we forget sometimes too is there's some other factors in there as well. A lot of the times, Janai was taking care of his business right alongside of Jalen. So it may not be as simple as Jalen is the reason we win or not win, but because of what was happening alongside him. Because, if he's opening himself up playing better, that's going to take some attention away from Janai, and Janai is going to have an even easier time than he does sometimes. Regardless, though, Jalen Williams has a huge impact on this team. The success of them, the heart of them, the poise of them, the comfort that he brings, and you cannot deny that from him and what he means to this team. And so, obviously, on my end, and I'm sure for many of you as well, you echo prayers for him on what's happening with his knee, and hopefully it's nothing too bad. Dwight, why are you disappointed? We're all a little bit sad here. It is an interesting stat. I'll give you that. It is. It's hard. You can't ignore that stat. I think we got to go with we got that stat out with a comb. Let's get a fine-tooth comb and go back through and look at some of those other things too. Doesn't take away from the main point of what you're trying and your dad are trying to make, that Jalen Williams makes a difference. Today is a great proof of that. Other stats let's look at tonight. So let's see if there's anything else important that tells you the differential. I think I see one here, and it's not one that we've talked about a lot this season because turnovers are pretty much the same, but points off of turnovers, 23 for Kentucky on the road, only 10 for Auburn. They doubled up on second chance points on us, but it's not. It's 10 to 20. Bench points, we got more than them. So they got more production out of their starters. Well, of course, one of our starters went out injured. Points in the paint, they won by 10. Defensively, we did well, either matched them or did better than them. Assists are pretty even. If you look at this stat right here, and again, everybody's going to have a different opinion. I'm looking at this. Where was it at? Points off of turnovers, 23 to 10. This is why I focus on turnovers, rebounds, and free throws. And that right there, points off of turnovers. I think if Auburn does a little bit better in that category, make some free throws, we are not as in desperate need of a situation at the end of the game and forcing some turnovers of ourselves because we're in desperation mode, or forcing something, as whoever said that earlier, forcing something that maybe isn't there. Denver's been getting a lot more attention tonight, the last couple of games at point guard, and I think it's great that we're giving him a try there. I don't know that necessarily he was ready to take on that role. Of course, he was forced into it because Trey got into some foul trouble. One thing I do want to point out tonight is that Kentucky had more fouls, 23 to 16. So I hope no Auburn fans will act like the refs made some humongous difference here. There were some very questionable calls at times. And I want to credit Jay Billis of the broadcast and obviously of College Game Day. I thought he did a good job tonight being very fair and how he discussed, agreed, disagreed with refs on both sides. I really appreciate it, because there were times I was like, you're just way off on that, buddy. And then there was like, oh, nope, he's on. And it was about both ways, in Auburn's favor or for Auburn's favor. So, yeah, the fouls were not that big of a difference tonight, at least for us. All right. What other storylines, what other stats, what other notes from this game do you want to discuss? Go ahead and get them in now. When we get done with this part of the show, we will move into looking ahead. Some of you have wanted to do that, and we will do that very briefly at the end here. As a reminder, what's coming up next? Tomorrow night, we may be making a slight adjustment in this. Episode 67 for the Auburn Experience podcast. We normally do this at 9 Eastern time. We might have a slight change and do it in the afternoon again. You'll understand why if that comes about. So just stay tuned for that. Know tomorrow that we will have the Auburn Experience broadcast. If it's not in the afternoon, it will be at our normal 9 Eastern time. This Tuesday, our very first baseball broadcast live stream, post-game live stream, we'll be discussing this weekend, the UAB game, and then looking ahead to the Jacksonville College Baseball Classic, followed by Auburn Family Night on Wednesday night at 8 Eastern time. Happy to get back there. No midweek basketball, so we will have fun talking together on the call-in show. So that's what's up this week. Looking ahead, already kind of said it, no basketball the midweek, and then we come back. Who are we playing next? Georgia? The Georgia game, first one of 2. We'll have another one a few weeks later, and then, of course, Tennessee comes down the line after that. So it ain't going to get much easier, folks. So buckle up. You got a week to sit on this one, to chill out, to ruminate on it. I know you're frustrated. I know you're concerned, but still plenty of basketball left to be played. Auburn is going to be in the postseason, barring an extreme meltdown, which I don't foresee that happening. And we'll see what happens with this team. Jay Billis is not afraid to speak his mind about the refs, and I love it. You know, isn't that the best? It kind of reminds you of Coach Sonny Smith on the broadcast with Andy, our former head basketball coach himself. He will just flat out tell you what he thinks about the refs and doesn't give a rip about what you think about it. That's why I love that man so dearly. And he does it such a nice way, too, on the radio, which I love about him. So I think right now the biggest concern is what's going on with Jalen. But even outside of that, for the team, the biggest concern is who steps up in his stead. Because even if he's fine, like he's not going to be fine, meaning he's got to take it easy and be careful with that. And he's not going to be back to his full self. Who steps up? Who takes the minutes? Who scores the points? Janai needs some help. Is it Chad Baker-Mazara's time to rise up into that occasion, kind of like he did tonight? Somebody else going to continue to step up like a Denver Jones has been trying to, but maybe if he's not forced into a point guard role as much, somebody's going to have to step up on the road. Georgia, Tennessee, plenty of time to figure all that out with a bye midweek this week. Have we ever beaten Mike White? I don't know, but I know we haven't beaten him a lot. Yes, I think we beat him his first season at our place, and they beat us at their place. If I could be wrong on that, but maybe not. So that's kind of there too. All right, final thoughts, comments, derogatory rebuttals. Get them in right now before we get out of here on the live stream. Of course, you can continue offering your thoughts if you're on the replay. Kind of wrapping things up here. Final score, 59-70. Very frustrating game for Auburn offensively. Sad news of Jalen Williams getting injured. Prayers for him. Trying to hope for the best that injury is not as extensive as sometimes knee injuries tend to be, because we really could use him down the stretch. Time for others to step up. A week off to regroup with a still challenging SEC schedule ahead. And it ain't going to get that much easier, folks. Appreciate you being here, being with me, and offering up your feels in a mostly constructive manner. I know some of you really tried your best and wanted to say more and chose not to, which I also commend as well. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Until I talk to you all again, War Eagle.